What's going on, Aces? Welcome back to the channel. It is Throwback Thursday, and Queen Latifah is being honored in the news cycle right now. So I definitely wanted to shout my girl out with one of my favorite movies, Set It Off. Okay, so this movie came out in November 6th, 1996, and it was directed by F. Gary Gray. And this movie is, it's a cultural icon. After being fired from her job as a bank teller, Frankie, who's played by Vivica A. She begins working at a janitorial service with her friends Tashawn, who is played by Kimberly Elise, who's a single mother, Cleo, who's played by Queen Latifah, and Stony, who is played by Jada Pinkett Smith, who is dealing with the recent death of her brother. And if y'all remember that scene, it was so sad, okay? Her brother, he had lied to Stony actually about getting accepted to college, but overall, I mean, he was a good kid, like he could have gone to community college that semester and transferred to a 4-year university whenever he was ready, you know what I mean? But she was basically trying to get her brother up and out the projects, and he goes to his boy's house and, gets a haircut, and boom, the cops come and they, pow, pow, pow first and ask questions later. Okay. So when they're dealing with all that trauma, because if you guys remember the opening scene it all started with, Frankie getting held up at a bank, and she was the teller, and they're like, what's the procedure? What's the procedure? It's just like, this movie, the theme that I see now that I'm older is how little grace, what I mean, these women were given. And that's a theme throughout our community as a whole by others, right? Like there's just such little grace. Like you have to be on point and perfect all the time, and even when you don't do anything wrong, like Sony's brother, it can still end tragically. So the women are struggling with their finances, and they begin to take down some banks, knock off some banks. And at first the group is successful, but then they soon attract the attention of an obsessive detective, who's played by John McKinley. Okay. Now, this movie was amazing for a couple different reasons, right? Because one, it gave us an amazing soundtrack. Like, shout out to everybody in the soundtrack. Blair Underwood, he's also one of my favorite actors. But it was the desperation that, drives 4 inner city women to a bank robbery in Los Angeles. And their friendship is really tested, throughout the film when, the money starts rolling in, right? Then they have their crooked boss who takes the money. He was a mess. He was like an old school hot mess, okay? He took that money and was out partying and just a horrible hot mess with it, okay? Then we got Jada and, somebody in the neighborhood or whatever, she's trying to get money for her brother's college tuition that he didn't get into, but she doesn't know that. So she's like, I'm in a bind, Nate. Like, it's just like real live, real cultural things that people still say that line all the time. Like one of my favorite comedians, Schuler King. Shout out to Schuler King on here. He's like, I'm in a bind, Nate. And we'll just pick up, certain lines and we'll roll with it. You know what I mean? Or, when Kimberly Elise and she's like, I need that money, like she's crying as Tashawn and stuff. So I think that this movie just resonated with people because it's hard out here. One, you're trying to do the best you can too. And, it's just like, even when life kicks you down, you still got your girls, you still got your friends to fall back on, because that's one thing that I loved about this film was the friendship and the camaraderie That's not to say that they didn't have their problems, okay? Because Stoney and Cleo definitely got into it. Cleo was acting reckless. And, Stoney was trying to protect her relationship with Blair Underwood's character, who worked at the bank. And she said that, she had never felt so beautiful. And so I love the fact that she was able to experience such a loving, gentle man as opposed to Nate, okay, trifling self. So I do love that aspect. I wish that we would have seen more romantic and interpersonal relationships with Vivica A. Fox's character and Frankie and Tashawn. But I know Tashawn was, working on getting her child back out of child protective services. Whew. It was just like, I just felt like, these ladies, they took one step forward and another step back. And that's not to say that what they did was right in the eyes of the law. However, comma, you know, there's people who, well, I'll just leave it at that. That I don't think that everyone's moral compass is different, okay? And they have their backs were against the wall. And it's really unfortunate because another classic scene is, when Cleo's in the car and, and she goes out in true Cleo fashion, you know what I mean? Like she puts on her music, she, cranks up the hydraulics and she, goes out in a blaze. Can't even say it was a blaze of glory, it was a blaze. But the one person that did get away, which I'm really, I'm glad that they ended the movie on a bittersweet note, with Stoney's character. And she gets on a bus to Mexico and then she calls, her boo thing. And he's like, Stoney, is that you? Are you okay? And she just lets him know that, she's alive and she's doing well. Because she definitely got that bread, okay? And if y'all know anything about Mexico, that conversion rate is everything. So in pesos, in pesos, she was going to be eating just fine over in Mexico. But anyway, that was it. That was just one of my favorite movies. I definitely wanted to shout out to Queen Latifah, Vivica, Jada, Kim. They killed this movie. It was so good. And yeah, it's a cult classic. So let me know your thoughts in the comments. As always, please be sure to like, share, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. And I will talk with y'all later. Take care, aces. Bye.